Hey everyone, John McNair here from Arlington County Department of Parks and Recreation, here to bring you another virtual tour of Arlington County's historic sites. Now today, we're at Fort Ethan Allen Park, located at 3829 North Stafford Street in Arlington, Virginia. We're here because we have an interesting anniversary coming up next week. On April 8th, we will be remembering the anniversary of the famous Henry Clay-John Randolph duel of 1826. So join me as I lead you through the places and the events that led to this historic duel. We begin today's program just a few minutes up the road in the District of Columbia. Here, you see the Chain Bridge, which connects the district to North Arlington County. Now in 1826, the political situation in Washington was a bit of a mess. 2 years earlier, during the presidential election of 1824, 4 men had run for president, and they were all members of the Democratic-Republican Party. This meant that the vote was split, and no one candidate secured enough electoral votes to become president. Now when that happens, the presidential election is decided by the House of Representatives, and as it so happened, one of the candidates, Henry Clay, was the Speaker of the House. Now Clay did not have enough support in the House to make himself president, but he essentially had enough power to choose the next president. Ultimately, he threw his support behind John Quincy Adams, even though Adams had not won a majority of electoral votes or even the popular vote. Once Adams became president, he appointed Henry Clay as Secretary of State. Now this enraged members of the Democratic-Republican Party, who saw Henry Clay as having traded away the presidency for a political appointment. As such, the already growing rift within the Democratic-Republican Party got bigger. Today, the election of 1824 and its aftermath are still referred to by some historians as the corrupt bargain of 1824. Now cut back to 2 years later in 1826, tensions are running very high between Congress and the presidential administration. Senator John Randolph of Virginia makes a scathing speech against Adams and Clay on March 30th, 1826. The next day, Clay challenged Randolph to a duel. Now that duel was to be held just opposite the District of Columbia on the Arlington side of the Potomac River. On April 8th, the two men came to about this point where they would have crossed the Little Falls Bridge over onto the Virginia side of the district. This brings us to North Glebe Road. Here, we find a marker that commemorates the site of the Clay-Randolph duel. Now, right now, we are in a little meridian between North Glebe Road and the merger with North Randolph Street. So this marker isn't easy to get to by foot, and there really is no place to pull over on Glebe to look at it. So if you're looking for this marker, please park somewhere safe like Fort Ethan Allen and proceed with caution on foot. Again, don't try to cross any roads if it doesn't look safe. Now, the night before the duel, Randolph had told a close friend that he did not plan to fire at Clay when the duel actually began. However, on April 8th, things got off to a bad start. Before the duel could even begin, the pistol at John Randolph's side accidentally misfired, shooting into the ground. Now, according to Randolph, this temporarily shook him to the point where he could not remember his original plan. So when the two men reset, both Clay and Randolph fired at one another, missing their targets. Because they missed, the two men reset to do it again. Now, it's a little unclear exactly what happens next, but most accounts seem to indicate that as they fired again, Clay's shot came close enough to Randolph that it actually punctured his dress coat. Randolph pointed his pistol into the air and told Clay that he had no intention of ever firing at him, but that the discharge had accidentally changed his judgment. As such, Randolph fired his pistol into the air, declaring an end to the duel. The two men crossed the field and shook hands, although neither one of them apologized for anything that led to it. As such, the political division within the Democratic-Republican Party continued. Which brings us back to Fort Ethan Allen Park. Now, 2 years after the end of the Clay-Randolph duel, we had another presidential election. Andrew Jackson was able to successfully defeat John Quincy Adams. Not only did this bring about an end to the Adams administration, but it also effectively ended the Democratic-Republican Party, and the various splinter groups formed political parties of their own. Now, John Randolph would continue to serve in politics for another couple years, dying in 1833. Henry Clay would do the same. Eventually, he would be elected to the U.S. Senate as a senator from Kentucky. He would be remembered as one of America's most powerful and influential politicians. But up to the end, political rivals would still bring up the failed duel with John Randolph as a way to get to him. Meanwhile, the divisions among the political parties grew even further, until eventually, the nation broke out into civil war. Forts like Fort Ethan Allen were built all across this country, as the federal government battled the state governments. As it just so happened, this one was built just a few paces away from where some of the earliest sectional shots were fired in Northern Virginia. That's our story. So, until next time, this was John McNair from the Department of Parks and Recreation, reminding you to stay safe and to enjoy the parks when you can.